Hi, my name is Judith Mendelsohn-Rude, and I'm a professor of history at Biola University, and I also teach Middle Eastern Studies. And I was born in Pittsburgh. My father and grandmother and grandfather on my dad's side are all Holocaust survivors. And my family has a great story about their escape from Germany, but it was always part of my world growing up, and my dad and mom raised me to be a conservative Jew. That means that they sent me to public school, and I went to synagogue, and I was really into synagogue and Hebrew school, and I got bat mitzvahed when I was 13. It was a moment of great joy in our family. I asked my parents to give me a Hebrew Tanakh, and nobody even knew about that sort of thing. A Hebrew Bible, that's the Old Testament, as some people call it. At any rate, I loved reading it, even as a young person, and I learned Hebrew pretty well. When I was 16, I was able to go to Israel for the first time, and when I arrived in Israel, I had a lot of questions about what was going on over there. I was really interested in the Palestinian problem. So I decided when I came back to the U.S. that this would be something that I would return to Israel, and that would become a goal of mine. And I also started to really question how the synagogue worked, because I was really into God, because here I am reading the Tanakh, and the synagogue was more of a social place. The people that I knew just knew that it was really important for us to have a Jewish identity. That was the major focus. But I started to have questions like, well, I'm an American, so what does it mean to be Jewish in America, and all of those kinds of questions. So I went on to college, and I studied Middle Eastern Studies. I went to Hebrew University for a year and became completely fluent in Hebrew, and I started to study Arabic. So I was really fascinated with Palestinian history, what went wrong with the Zionist movement, what is this all about? But in the process, I started to become very dark and despairing. I was really questioning, what's the point to all of this? Why don't people believe in God? Why does God, stay away from us? Why does He let so many terrible things happen? And I really became very depressed, although I didn't know that that was what I was experiencing in these days. So I started working, and I met someone who had just come back from India, and he was really on fire for the Lord. And he introduced me to the InterVarsity fellowship people at the University of Chicago, who were very impressive. And we started going together to all of these events on campus, including debates about creationism, and it was really fantastic. And so this person invited me also to go to the Jews for Jesus Bible study, and I was like, okay, I'll try this. It's sort of an anthropological experience. I'll see what these people are all about. There was something about them that I liked, but I also thought they were nuts. So I went in sort of loaded for bear, ready to fight, and I'm like, how can you call yourselves Jews for Jesus? Isn't that just a terrible thing? So even though I was really anti-Christian, I was very anti-Christian because of anti-Semitism, the Holocaust, and I just didn't like the Christian church. And I had studied a lot of church history, and I really didn't like Christians. But as I learned about these people, they were so different. They really believed in the God of Israel, and they believed that the God of Israel still has a purpose and plan for the Jewish people. And I had never heard anything like that before. It was just an amazing thought. It really encouraged me that God hadn't abandoned us. So I started really thinking about that, and I began to think about, well, who is God? God is able to do anything He wants. So who are we to say what God can do or can't do? So I sort of opened myself up to the possibility of the miracles that the New Testament talks about. And I started to think about it. I didn't know how to pray. I thought I knew how to pray, but I wasn't really praying back then. And so I was invited to go to an Easter service one weekend, which happened to be the same weekend as Passover. So I always had a big Seder at the University of Chicago or wherever I was, and invited all my friends who were, people from Azerbaijan and Turkey and all of these different places. So we did the Seder, and then on Sunday morning I went to services with the InterVarsity people. And Jan Moskowitz, who works with Jews for Jesus, was preaching that day. And it was great. It was in a Hilton hotel, just plain hotel chairs. There were no symbols of any kind, and the audience was international and multiracial, and I loved that so much. And people were praying, and Jen then gave a sermon, And at the end of his sermon, and of course this was all news to me, I had never been to a Christian service, and then he said, if any of you want to know the Lord Yeshua HaMashiach as your personal Savior, stand up. And I thought to myself, who would do that? Stand up in front of all these people. And I opened my eyes. I was standing up, and it really freaked me out. And I really didn't want to become a Christian, and I didn't know what any of this stuff meant, really. I told my friends that, they should just leave me alone, and I really hightailed it out of there before anyone could come and start talking to me, because I really wasn't interested in sharing. So I just prayed to God, and I said, Lord, I don't know if this is you or if it's Satan tempting me. Am I being weak? What do you want, Lord? What do you want? And the Lord didn't say audibly, but I got the strong impression that the Lord was saying, stop fighting me, trust me, follow me. And I laugh when I think about this. I actually said, but God, you don't understand the consequences. My mom's going to be really upset. I was so fearful of my mother. It's amazing to me. She just represented all of the judgment that I knew would come. I said, Lord, I just can't do this. I just don't know if this is really true. And he said, just stop fighting me, trust me, follow me. And I said, I accept you, Yeshua, as my Savior to myself. That was really a huge deal. I feel that God completely transformed me, changed my personality, and made me much more open to things that I would have been very closed about. He made me kinder. But God has been so faithful. He's blessed me so much, and I have a wonderful family life. All of my major, issues about existence were resolved. If you read the gospel, you'll realize all of the questions about Jewish law are solved, because everyone knows it's impossible to obey the 614 commandments. And so if we want to be forgiven, God has said, I forgive you. Just trust me, believe me, follow me, and I will reveal who I am to you, and that will change your life. And you'll be able to be with me and have fellowship with me into eternity. And wow, what could you ask for more than that, really? To have peace with man and also peace with God, to be able to have love, and not a sappy kind of Pollyanna-ish love, but a courageous love where you're able to take what the world deals out to you, but from a position of strength and confidence, hope and optimism. The Jewish people aren't going to be saved by Israel alone, obviously. Everyone has figured that out. You can't really become, a truly happy person in any human society, because we're all fallen. And so why not take a chance? It's either it's true or it's not, but if it's true, you're in big trouble when the big day comes around and the Lord comes to judge the world. Which side of the line do you want to be on? That's what everyone is asking these days. This is what the conflict between Islam and Christianity and Judaism is all about. There's no coercion in religion. There's no way that anyone can force you to believe one thing or another. You have to be the one who makes the personal decision to enter into a relationship with God. And let the Lord speak to you. And if you hear his voice, he'll tell you what to do. And I pray that in Yeshua's name. Amen.